All right, good evening from New York City. My name is Paul Mueller. I'm an assistant professor of economics here at the King's College in Manhattan. And I'd like to welcome you to this evening where we're going to be talking about a high school program that we run, the Summer Academy. Throughout this program, if you have questions, please go ahead and submit them. But as I said, I teach here. I'm finishing my third year here at the King's College, teaching different courses in economics. And I'd like to introduce the guests that I have with me tonight, who are all going to be part of the high school summer academy that we run this summer, 2018. So we have Kimberly Reeve, Clemente Lise, and Tim Gibson. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves here in a moment. They're going to be leading different tracks for the program. So as you probably know, the way that the Summer Academy is set up is it's going to be over 2 weeks. In the summer. The first week will involve the political economy track and the business track. The second week will involve the media and journalism track and the leadership track. But enough of me. I want you to hear from some of the other track leaders. So with that, Professor Kimberly Reeve, would you mind introducing yourself just briefly to us?
Absolutely. I'm Kimberly Reeve, and I am an associate business professor at the King's College. And I am new to academia, so in my past life, I worked as a management consultant and had the opportunity to travel and work internationally, which was amazing. And I'm blessed to be at King's and teach a variety of business classes.
Excellent. Clemente?
Hi, yes, my name is Professor Clemente Lise. I've been at the King's College now for 1 year. Before that, I spent 20 years in journalism, worked at the New York Post for 15 of those years, the bulk of my career. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about the Summer Academy and hope many of you come to New York this summer.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Gibson. I'm the acting president of the King's College right now. And I've been with the college a little over 18 months. But I had a daughter who came to King's, so I was a King's dad well before I was a King's employee. And I spent 32 years in the United States Air Force as a pilot and retired as a brigadier general before coming to King's. So I guess the common thread here is none of us really are core academics, but here we are at King's together.
Excellent, but you're going to be teaching high school students this summer.
Indeed.
So let's talk a little bit about what you all are going to be teaching. So we'll go in reverse order. So Acting President Gibson, what's the leadership track about?
So the leadership track is built around what I think of as one of the most remarkable series of events in American history, in the American Revolutionary history specifically. So New York City has a deep history that goes all the way back into the 1600s, but leading into the Revolutionary period, the largest battle of the Revolutionary War happened right in our own backyard. It was the Battle of Brooklyn, and it was the first battle fought after the Declaration of Independence was signed. And some of the fascinating elements about that battle are that the same two commanders who met the year prior in 1775 in Boston met again in New York, but the outcome was completely reversed. And so in Boston, Washington beat the British, but here in New York, he was forced to retreat and eventually lost the entire city, and it remained occupied for the rest of the Revolution. And so what we're trying to do through the leadership track is discern what were the principles that underpinned either the success or the failure on each side here in the Battle of Brooklyn.
Excellent. Great.
So no matter where you start, I'm always going second.
Yes, you're in the middle.
That's okay. So the journalism track is set up in two different categories. One is arts and culture, which Professor Glider will be teaching, who's my associate here, and that will focus on New York art institutions. New York is one of the art capitals of the world, culture capitals of the world, along with Paris and London. So it's a unique opportunity for students to come here, visit museums, tour various monuments, and then write about that. I'll teach the sports writing track. So maybe not too many sports fans out there, but New York is a sports capital in its own way. A lot of Yankee haters, but anyways, New York has produced a lot of sports history, and we're going to be lucky enough to attend and get press credentials for a minor league baseball game if you come to King's College this summer for Summer Academy. And in addition to that, we'll be touring one of the most famous venues in New York, Madison Square Garden, this summer. So a lot of opportunity to interact with sports history in the city and interact with athletes. And it's a wonderful opportunity, really, and a unique opportunity that a lot of high school students don't get a chance to do until they get to college. So
right.
I would take advantage of that.
And did you, when you were reporting, did you do a lot of sports reporting?
I did some sports writing, including attending the World Series in 2000, which was unique in that it was a Subway Series between the Mets and the Yankees.
Okay.
And it was surreal seeing the Yankees win the World Series at then Shea Stadium.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of Yankee fans had already bought tickets from Mets fans who had dumped their tickets. So it was a strange. The city was divided, pinstripe versus orange. I attended the World Cup in 2010 in South Africa. It was a unique experience to have such a big sporting event in an African country. So sports is a unique situation because you interact with the culture of the people.
Right.
And New York is like its own city-state in that way. And
yeah.
so, if you ever go to Yankee Stadium, you can interact with the fans there, and it's a unique experience. If you go to a Giants football game, same thing. So.
Right. There's a soccer stadium out near where I live called the Red Bull Stadium,
yes.
and you can always tell when it's a game. There are people in two different kinds of jerseys,
right.
and just
yes.
they're hours ahead of time,
yes.
and big fans.
And the Red Bulls will be playing this summer, so if students are here and they want
That's
to play
right.
a
You
game,
can come out and see the soccer game.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay. Kimberly.
Well, first of all, I want to go to both of your tracks. It sounds really interesting. So I teach the business track, and in that, we really look at how business intersects, first of all, with consumers. You have to sell a product or service to somebody or someone, but also how business intersects with nonprofits and government. And in New York City, we have a little bit of government that we have to deal with. So this track, similar to President Gibson's, we also start in the 1600s with the Dutch founding of New York City. And I love to start there because the Dutch established New York City because it was a great place to make money. And I love that that's the history of how we started, because today New York City is a global business finance capital. From there, we also do a business simulation. So you will have hands-on experience, you'll be in a team, you'll be running your own business online, and we'll be competing with each other. So that really allows us to talk about some of the theories, but then also to have real hands-on experience in doing it every day. So that will be a lot of fun as well.
Excellent. Well, one of the things I love about being at King's is sort of how things are so interdisciplinary, of how these things build off of one another. And so I'm leading the political economy track. And so we talk about government and about economics and development and business to some extent, but from a very different angle. So this summer, we're going to be looking at the issue of housing, particularly in New York City, but the idea of housing in general, where it seems on the surface a fairly simple issue of like, well, people need a place to live, and most of us grew up in houses, and it seems fairly straightforward. And yet, as some of our listeners may know, as you all know, that there's actually a lot of national conversation about what's reasonable rent, housing prices skyrocketing, how do we add more housing, how do we have affordable housing. Homelessness has become sort of an increasingly visible issue in many large cities. And so our track is looking at what are the economics behind housing and how it's generated and where people live, and then the pricing, as well as the politics behind restricting building new residential units, building houses, zoning, things like that. So again, has these connections here. So something that makes the Summer Academy special, and I want each of you to kind of comment on this, is the fact that we're located here in New York City. And so for our audience listening, they may never have lived in New York City or maybe haven't even visited. So for those who are maybe unfamiliar with the city, I thought it would be fun to kind of share either your favorite place to eat or something you really enjoy doing in the city, or both. And so I'll give you a chance to think about it. I'll share my thought here. So there are a couple of things that I enjoy doing. My wife is very into musicals, and so we've been to several Broadway shows to make an evening of it and go to the theater district. And of course, there's all kinds of different restaurants. You can have whatever kind of food you want. So we really enjoy Thai or pho as a cuisine. So those are a few things that I enjoy, but we'll go ahead and Clemente, we'll let you go first.
Start with me.
You're in the middle.
Right, I'm in the middle. I'm also a lifelong New Yorker, so I guess I can speak to this more than, yes, I've been here the longest, so I've been eating here the longest, I guess. Right. Two places I prefer that I like, and I think I take guests all the time too, is Lombardi's Pizza in Little Italy. It's the oldest pizza place in New York. It was founded 100 years ago. It's still there, so it's always a treat to get a piece of Italy here in New York. And the other one in Katz's Deli on the Lower East Side, which if you like a $20 corned beef sandwich,
And staying in line for a while.
and stay in line for maybe 40 minutes,
Right.
it's a treat. It's worth it. You know, my kids love it. We go once a year. We kind of make a trip out of it, and
Yeah.
it's very good.
I remember when we first went there, it was a place that people told us we had to go, and it was going there, it's on Houston Street.
Yes.
Because of course you think Houston Street,
Right.
but that's not how you say it.
Not in-
It's
not in
Houston.
New York.
Not in
Right.
New York,
Yeah.
that's right, Houston Street.
If you say Houston Street, no, they'll say, I don't know what
They
that
wouldn't-
is.
yeah, they wouldn't even know what
It doesn't
you're talking
exist,
about.
right?
That's right. Excellent.
Right.
Am I next?
Yeah, we'll go with you.
Okay, so let's see. Favorite thing, I love exploring the city.
Yes.
It's been a real treat.
It's a good walking city.
It is.
Yeah.
It's right to understand New York City not as 8 million people on the island of Manhattan, but these terrific little neighborhoods of Tribeca and Soho and Chelsea and Fide and those kinds of things. And you can sense them as you walk from one to the next. You're exactly right.
It's like a series of small towns.
Yep.
Really.
Yeah, each has its own feel, its own vibe. So you get a variety of culture by doing that. So my wife and I love doing that. But probably our favorite thing to do is Friday evenings. Our daughter goes to youth group on the Upper West Side. And that gives us a perfect built-in excuse to go find a new restaurant and explore on the Upper West Side. So one of our go-tos is Cafe Lelo, which was featured in the movie You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and back in the day. So it's a real place. It's got great food and fantastic desserts.
Excellent.
Well, I love all of that. I love exploring. I love food. We used to live in Bay Ridge. We moved across the river to New Jersey. But in Brooklyn, there are just so many mom and pop restaurants. And we were there for 14 years. And so we'd walk into a restaurant and, the owners would know us. We'd basically say, surprise us, and they'd bring out whatever the special was, which was amazing. But in addition to eating and walking, I love the museums of New York City. And obviously there's the Met, but there are also smaller museums. So I always count it a win if the museum building is also a nice place to visit. And for those, I love the Morgan Museum, J.P. Morgan's mansion, and the Frick Museum, which also is a beautiful mansion as well. But so many amazing places to explore in New York City.
Yeah, so I mean, it's sort of there's a lot to be seen. Well, I've been told that we're going to do a short commercial break here, so you're in for a treat of a short commercial here, and we'll be back in just a minute or two. All right, welcome back. So what we're going to talk about now is, again, following up on sort of New York City and what it has to offer. And in particular, I want to tie it into the tracks that we're leading. And so what is it about studying sports journalism or leadership or business in Manhattan is special about being here? So I'll let whoever wants to take it first go ahead. We'll see how this goes with some freedom.
Rock, paper, scissors.
All right.
For me, business in New York City, you have an automatic competitive advantage if you study or have studied business in New York City. And I learned this when I was working internationally, and all I would have to say is, I'm a management consultant from New York City. And you just have instant credibility. People
Interesting.
assume they know you know what you're talking about, even if you may not. And the reason why that's so important is because New York City is the center of business in the United States and in many cases in the world. So I love just to have that experience, but also being able to take a look and integrate the great businesses that are around us. So we use some case studies of businesses that are in the neighborhood of the financial district. We do a walking tour and talk about the impact of Wall Street, which is literally around the corner from campus. So we can see some of these things firsthand, but also you'll have that firsthand experience of living and being in New York City, which really will add to your credibility as well.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. So it's true. So as you embark on your careers, having been part of the Summer Academy here and having that New York City on your resume really goes far. And to say you did some journalism in New York or sports writing in New York or arts writing in New York will make your resume pop, your portfolio pop, compared to people who haven't had the opportunity to come here and do it. New York is a tough place. Someone who spent 20 years doing journalism in New York is tough. We tell students all the time to go out and interview people on the street. And have you tried to stop a New Yorker on the street? I mean, it's
it's
a challenge. But
unless you run into them.
Right, but the beauty of New York is that there's 8 million people here. So if someone ignores you, hey, there's another 7.9999. So there's no limit to the work you can do here, and that's the beauty of it. And New York is a boot camp of journalism. It toughens you up, and it's fun and challenging all at the same time. I think it's a unique opportunity, and you should take that opportunity when given.
Yeah, well, and the high school academy is a great chance for you students who are coming out or interested, because it's a chance to kind of come for a set period of time.
Right.
You've kind of got some structure. You kind of have people
Parameters,
showing you the ropes, and then if you love it, you can always come to the college, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, because that's what most of us do in our day jobs. Yes, I echo that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from the leadership track perspective, I would argue this kind of the same point. It's the relevance of New York City to this particular sequence of events in the revolution, because we're going to actually go out to the sites where a lot of these events unfolded and transpired. And when you actually get on the ground and are able to see sort of through the eyes of the commanders who were making the decisions, and we try to limit your information to the information that they had available upon which they were making those decisions, it's pretty fascinating. And so the leadership track, you asked the question along the lines of what's it like to do from Manhattan. Well, we kind of cheat, because we're gonna talk a little bit about Staten Island, and we're going to talk about Brooklyn. We're also going to talk about Manhattan, but we're going to hit at least those three boroughs. And the city just offers a rich, kind of an embarrassment of riches when it comes to lessons that you can pull from that sequence of events.
And you actually take students there.
We do, yeah, absolutely. And it's fun to go back to 1776 and talk about where the British were encamped and how they actually crossed the Narrows to come to Brooklyn. And now, that's the Verrazano Bridge. And well, Washington ended up having to retreat from Brooklyn back to Manhattan, and well, the path that he took is now the Brooklyn Bridge, and so it just connects to the modern era pretty tightly.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, there's all kinds of, and we'll actually talk a little bit about this later as well, but so many things to do and to see here. I remember last summer I took students to the Museum of Finance just down the road here to talk about the history of money. Which may sound kind of boring, but actually most people don't know that banks used to issue their own banknotes, that you would have $5 from the Bank of New York. And like, how did that come about? So they have all this interesting money there, and money is the sort of thing that we don't think about too much, but actually makes the whole economy run and is really important. And for housing, again, New York is a great place to be. So this summer we're planning on going to the Tenement Museum, which is this whole museum with tours and history about immigrants coming over and living here, and tough living conditions and crowding. Again, it's a great place to study housing, because how on earth do you have 8 or 9 million people living in one city? That's more than most U.S. states all here in one spot. So it's kind of like, you can think about it as its own state in a way, and you can kind of see that. I was thinking about this when you see advertisements, that sometimes there are advertisements that are just New York City focused, because you could advertise to New York City and reach more people than advertising to like Wyoming or Montana or things like that. So anyway, so it's a neat place to be studying these things. I want to change gears here a little bit and talk about a different element of the program in terms of, it's at the King's College. It's a Christian liberal arts college, explicitly evangelical. We hold to Orthodox Christian views, the importance of the Bible and of faith in Christ. So I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on perhaps how Christianity plays into how you teach or how you think about approaching the topics, whether it's in your track or in your work more broadly at the college. Just kind of share a little bit about why the Christian faith is important to what we do and how it impacts what we do. We'll start with you, Kimberly.
I was joking earlier that, of course, business and Christianity have nothing to do with each other. But I look at business and Christianity as being one and the same. So I don't think I can separate myself out as a Christian and look at how am I a Christian and how do I do business. I look at myself as how do I do business as a Christian, and that's what I like to bring into the class. So throughout the class discussion, we'll talk about different issues, whether it's an ethical issue or even the issue of how much money do you make? Is making too much money a bad thing? And what does God want us to do with the money that we do make? So in every facet of business, there are different ways that we can think about our faith, and it really integrates very well. The other fun thing with New York City is we are right across the street from Trinity Church, and many of New York's founding fathers went to Trinity Church. So we also, in my class, talk about the role that religion plays in really offering a space for key leaders and cultural influencers to convene, and Trinity is a great example of that.
Yeah, we teach our students, journalists are always looking to seek the truth. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of biblical comparisons that can be made to that, and storytelling in general. If you look at the Bible is in a way a piece of journalism, and sort of a first draft of everything in history, So we teach our students that, and there's a lot of, like business, a lot of ethical and moral quandaries that journalists find themselves into, and whether it's Pentagon Papers or other issues relating to government and morality. So the two are akin to each other, and understanding one helps inform the other. Mm-hmm. And we teach our students that, and I think that it makes you a better Christian, but also a better journalist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's terrific. Linking that directly to the Summer Academy track for leadership, the first day that we get into looking at the Battle of Brooklyn, we look at the road to the Revolutionary War. And rather than just limiting it to the political or the economic considerations that led to the conflict, I actually go back pretty far, probably 80 years prior to that, maybe 100 years prior to that, and look at the Great Awakening and the impact of the preaching and the faith element in the colonies. And how did that inform the decision of the colonists to actually recognize that what King George was up to wasn't something that they were willing to undergo and to live under those circumstances, and how that informed their principles that they were willing to rise up and actually fight for. Clearly, there's the biblical of no greater love have any man than to lay down his life for a friend. That's an easy element to weave into the leadership track. And then again, with our proximity here in the financial district of New York City, we've got the opportunity not just to go across the street and see Trinity Church, where 6 signers of the Declaration are entombed, but also St. Paul's, which is just up the block from Trinity, where the day that he was sworn in as the first president of the United States, George Washington was prayed over by the Congress. The parade came down Broadway, and then he went to the steps of Federal Hall, which is 2 minutes away. Yep. A great 13-foot statue of him there, with his hand outstretched on what we now know to have been a Bible at the time, and where he took the oath of office as the first president. So faith is just replete in this neighborhood. Yeah.
No, those are excellent points about how faith and Christianity are tied up historically in this country and getting to where we are, and also about the truth seeking. I think that's also important. So when I teach, we're doing this track about housing, and it's about justice in many ways, about freedom and about justice and about human flourishing, the opportunity to live well, to live freely, to care for the least fortunate among us, right? So homelessness and poverty are related to affordable housing. And so I always teach my students, whether it's Summer Academy or in regular classes, that economics helps you understand how the world works better, so you're pursuing truth, but it also in doing that, it helps you understand about how to really advocate for people's welfare, and not just to advocate for things that sound nice but maybe don't work or won't work, or even work in the opposite direction of what you expect. So justice plays a huge role in this. Well, I have a question from some of our watchers, and I'll let each of you comment on this to see what you think. But this is a very down-to-earth, rubber meets the road question. What should students bring to wear in terms of business, professional, shoes, and so forth? So
I'm gonna chime in.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So you said rubber meets the road. So I tell students you gotta wear comfortable shoes.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of walking in New York.
Yep.
There's it's not a driving culture here. I didn't drive until I was 27 years old. So
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun fact.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah. But having said that, I still barely drive. But it's important to be able to walk around, and if you're going to go to Brooklyn or Staten Island, you get to the subway, you got to go up and down steps, you got to walk a lot, and it's busy in the summer here in New York, so,
So
wear sneakers.
comfortable shoes.
Wear comfortable shoes. You want to bring something nicer for the evening, maybe,
Right.
but otherwise wear really comfortable shoes.
Yeah, I remember hearing from President Gibson's track. They came in one evening for the dinner, and they're like, we've just been running around over the fields, and we've gone 8 miles or something. Maybe you could set the record straight on this.
Technically not running, but
Not 8 miles, but
no, it might have been 8 miles.
yeah, it might have been.
May have been 8 miles, but moving at a reasonable pace.
Yeah. Just be ready to be on the
So if
road,
you're doing
walking.
leadership, that's right. So shoes.
Yeah,
Good
no,
shoes.
I think that's great. We've got a couple of days, at least for the leadership track, where we're going to be on campus the whole day,
Right.
and then just in the financial district. So, not anything, business casual is just fine for that.
Yeah.
Even a little bit less than that. There's going to be a couple of days where we really are out in, Prospect Park holds some of the key sites that we're going to want to look at for the Battle of Brooklyn. And so on those days, frankly, nice shorts and
Right.
a polo for guys would
Yeah.
be very appropriate, and something equivalent for the ladies would work.
And bring layers. It's
Yeah.
always cold in the classroom.
That's right.
And it's really hot outside
Exactly,
in
yeah.
New York City.
That's
It's
right.
Super hot.
And we'll likely get rained on once.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah, bound to happen. So there you have it. Hopefully that answers your question. We'll send out more information as well to people who are coming about other suggestions about what to bring and pack, but that's helpful. So let's talk about students now. So we're talking about things that we think, but what kinds of students do you think should come to your programs? Do you hope come? What kind of students are we trying to attract, and who will do well in the summer academy programs?
Well, for the leadership track, I would say come if you're curious. Be really not quite insatiably curious, but pretty close.
That was mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, want to really understand what happened in a true way, and from good, bad, and ugly. But somebody who's got a passion for history or for principles of leadership, because at the end of the course, like Dr. Reeves' course, we're going to talk through some leadership principles, but the final exam, if you will, is applying those principles to a situation back home, whether it's on a basketball team that you happen to play on, or if it's a band, or just any organization that you're a part of that you've got an opportunity to have a leadership role in, whether that's formal or informal, and applying those principles in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that bringing curiosity is very important, especially if you want to be a journalist. You have to be curious about the way the world works, how things run, and ask lots of questions. So I would say come with lots of questions, and hopefully by the time the week is over, you'll get them answered. That's
Right.
the way I look at it.
And in addition to being curious, which is always a good character trait, my track obviously covers business, but if you're interested in nonprofit or the public sector, we also talk about that a lot. I talk about the intersection, because increasingly with the rise of social enterprise, we're seeing a real blurring of the traditional corporate, nonprofit, government sectors. So again, if you are not sure if you really want to pursue business, this might be a really good opportunity to just explore other sectors as well.
Yeah, excellent. And I think we're looking for students who are curious about the city, who want to come to see the city, who are curious about King's College and what we're about. This is just sort of a small taste of some of the things that we do with college students here full time. There's something else I was going to say about that, but it slipped my mind. Oh, I was also going to say that for students, we want people who are curious and who are interested in engaging and asking questions, who don't just expect to be told things, but actually want to engage in the classroom and then sort of, ask questions about things, try to understand it and participate in what goes on. And we've had that in the past, I think, for the most part, of like sort of rich dialogue and engagement that's going on. So that's really helpful. One other thing that I slipped my mind on the what to wear, what to bring with you, is there will be a Broadway show that we're going to see both weeks. So you might want to bring something a little bit nicer for that if you want to get a little bit dressed up. The shows I think we're watching will be either Come From Away, or, which is, by the way, we saw last year and is fantastic.
It was really good.
And also The Play That Went Wrong, which I'm not as familiar with, but that will be a different week. Here's another question, and this is fitting as well, that we'll take here, specifically about journalism, which is what will the exam or the assessment look like for journalism? So this is academic program. These courses or tracks carry 1 college credit, and there will be assessments of various kinds. So the question that we received is mostly about journalism. So we'll start with that, but then we can each share sort of how we're assessing it.
Okay, so you can't be a journalist without writing and producing some storytelling techniques. So after enriching yourself with arts and culture or sports, then you have to produce something at the end of that. And so if you're in the sports track, we're going to a baseball game, you have to either do a game story or a profile of an athlete, and that'll all come into focus once you're here. And then for arts reporting, you'll have to write about a cultural experience or museum you visited. And so it'll be an opportunity to report on the ground and then take what you've collected and produce something.
So the assessment will be primarily sort of looking at the reporting that they do.
Right, the reporting and then storytelling in the end, and then the writing, and so sort of and help build that foundation.
Excellent.
Yeah, for the leadership track, I hinted at it already, but the way we'll do it is at the beginning of the week, we'll talk about you and what activities you're involved in and why you think you want to study leadership in more detail. And we'll get specifics. So we'll talk about whether you're in Civil Air Patrol or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or whatever the activity might be. And then we're going to look over the course of the week for the leadership principles that manifest by studying the Battle of Brooklyn. And we're going to look for opportunities to connect your situation to those principles so that you're well prepared to describe at the end of the week how you think those principles can actually be applied in real world in whatever context you're going back to.
In business, we'll basically give you a societal issue, so some major problem, and ask you to solve it. So very simple, but really looking
all in a week.
That's
right.
It's crazy, but really looking just for your integration of what you've learned. So, is it going to be a private sector solution? Is it going to be a nonprofit sector solution? And again, the great news is there's no right answer. So it's really how your thought process, what that looks like, and how you integrate what you've learned from the class.
Yeah, I suppose political economy is probably the most sort of academic-y traditionally, where it'll be, several questions and essays of just sort of thinking about the purpose of housing, so its theological purpose and human purpose in terms of flourishing as sort of living well as human beings, and then thinking about some of the practical issues in housing, like why is it expensive, what has to happen for people to have housing, to have different quality of housing, and then talking about some of the political elements that perhaps interact with that, maybe interfere with it, and thoughts about things that can be done with our current crisis or problems that emerge, and how we might deal with those. So I think what we're going to do now, if we're ready, is take a second commercial break briefly here, and then we're going to wrap up with just a couple more quick questions at the end. So we're going to do short commercial break here, and then we'll wrap up. I'm going to give each guest a 30-second pitch for their track about why you should take it. So break, and we'll be back here shortly.
If you know that you want to end up in New York City, you should definitely consider King's, because a huge part of making a career in New York City is getting involved in the community here. And you can either do that after you've graduated, or you can start to do that while you're in college. This is where the energy is, and you can get a sense of what does it mean to be a theater artist in America.
So as I said before the break, I'm going to give each of the audience members, or the guests here, I'm not going to make you do it, but each of the guests here, we're going to give them 30 seconds or less to kind of make a pitch. What is the thing you're most excited about with your track? Why do you think students should come and take your track? And Clemente, I'm going to actually give you double duty because you've got two. You've got to try to do the arts and culture one, and then the journalism.
And the sports one, the sports writing one. Yeah. So look, we spoke about this throughout this show. So it's a unique opportunity to come to New York, immerse yourself in the journalism and the culture here and the sports that make up this town, and really a unique opportunity for someone who's high school age to be able to come here and do all these things that your friends will be envious that you're doing this summer. And you'll get this unique opportunity going into college, so you'll have a leg up on most students. And just have fun. It's a great time. We build community, we foster relationships, and we help you grow in your profession. You get a real taste of what real life is like, and that's really the fun part, I think.
Well, there's a saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I believe that, and I think it's a great opportunity to come and learn about business and nonprofits and government in the greatest city in the world. We all live here, we all love being here, and we would love for you to come and experience that just even a little bit.
I'd say for the leadership track, Professor Lisi emphasized the truth. And the truth is, thanks to Lin-Manuel Miranda, Revolutionary War history is cool again. The musical Hamilton, come figure out what it is that were the events and the people that were involved that underpin the song Right Hand Man. That one by itself will cover a good bit of what we're going to talk about over the course of the week as part of the leadership track. And then going out and actually standing on the ground where those events unfolded helps take events out of the 2 dimensions of a book and bring them into the 3-dimensional world. So,
excellent. Well, for political economy, I'm not sure what to say other than if you care about poor people or you care about justice, then you should come study about them here. And we're going to go around neighborhoods. We're going to go to the Tenement Museum and think about justice, about the poor, about human flourishing, and how those things interact, and how we see that in New York City, around the country. It's a pressing issue that people are commenting on, and I think we'll keep commenting on as housing prices continue to rise. So it's a pressing issue. This is a place to do it. It's a great chance to meet people and to kind of get a taste of New York City, a taste of sort of what the King's College is about, and you've heard from our instructors here who are going to be doing it, and it's a neat place to be. So thank you for tuning in. I have a couple quick comments as we wrap up here. So thank you to my guests for coming and discussing this. Just in terms of one of the questions that was raised is how many students usually do this, and it varies in size. So we've had 8 to 10 students in a track. We've had upwards of 20 or about 20 students in a track. So you can kind of think 10 to 20. So it's pretty small, very focused, where you really get to know everyone who's in your track. You get to know the people who are teaching, and you'll get to know people across tracks. We're going to do some field trips together, and then some that are specific to the track that you're studying. So we look forward to having you here. Tell your friends about it. They're still open. We're still taking applications. You can apply online. And please follow up with us if you have questions. Anyone here, we're happy to talk with you or email with you about our topics, what we're studying, answer questions. And we look forward to seeing many of you here this summer in July or August. So thank you again. This is Paul Mueller signing off.